Nick, I think you're on mute if you're talking.
No, he's not.
He's not on mute, but we are live on YouTube. So if you'd like to start the meeting, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. And apologies to members that it's a bit of a late start. We have got one or two IT issues. So first of all, I would like to welcome members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the Council's website. Members, you are now fully aware that you must keep your video camera switched on for the duration of the meeting. And I would ask you please to keep your microphone muted except when I invite you to speak. Please click the right hand if you wish to make a comment or wish to speak. Please also remember to lower it when you have asked your question. There is always a risk that we may run into some technical problems, and I'd ask you for your patience if we do. Should this occur, I will adjourn the meeting and try to identify the fault, address, and then restart the meeting on the public broadcast. If it's not possible to address the fault, the meeting will be abandoned and to such times as where it can be recovered. Can I just remind members and officers and public speakers that all the virtual meetings will be recorded and these meetings will be on the public website. So members, that's the start, but I'm going to ask for your indulgence a little bit and start with something to wish one of our Democratic Services members a farewell. Rob Sanderson, as you may know, is retiring on the 18th of December. He's worked 38 years in local government. So there's an achievement in itself. Rob actually started his early life in Cambridge and went to school in Cambridge and actually did an A-level at Cambridge College of Art and Technology, followed by a 4-year degree course in public administration with honours degree. During that time, he worked in various secondments in Essex, in Waltham Forest, Waltham Abbey, and Haverhill, and also in Hackney. Rob joined Cambridgeshire County Council in 2003, and I'm sure many of you have seen him over these period that he's been with us at full council, audit and accounts, resources and strategy, the general purposes. He served for the last 4 years when I was chairman of economy and environment, and now obviously also with health, and obviously with this particular committee, which is the new highways and transport. I'm sure on behalf of all the members present here and both past as well, would wish to wish Rob a happy retirement, a long life. I know he's got some hobbies that he's going to do. Okay. And a big thanks, I think, for all the work that Democratic Services that do, which are not always seen. They are there listening, recording, writing, making sure that the minutes are accurate. And that's a task in itself. It's also a bigger task getting the officers to get the reports there on time as well. And I'm sure the officers will smile at that particular comment. Okay, so thank you, Rob, on behalf of all the members, and wish you well in the future as you retire, and hope you have a good Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now I've got Noel Kavanagh wants to speak. So Noel.
Just to say, really enjoy your retirement, Rob. It's been marvellous working with you for, well, the nearly 8 years I've been a county councillor, and I just say a huge thanks from me and the other members of our small Labour group. You've always been hugely helpful and a wonderful kind of quiet presence in that Democratic Services place of sanity, a kind of haven from our kind of members' rooms where there's certain shenanigans, which it's great to be able to go into that lovely supportive area called Democratic Services, and we'll really miss you. So make sure you really enjoy your retirement and make the most of it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Noel. Ian Manning.
And just to add to that, Robert, I think Noel put it incredibly, Councillor Kavanagh put it incredibly well. It's a bit like when you walk into democratic services, sometimes it's a bit like walking into the grown-ups room and suddenly you're being treated like, suddenly you're in with the adults. And just a word that I think utterly sums you up is unflappable. I've number of times I've walked into democratic services in a bit of a tiz, not quite knowing where either in the old days where my committee papers were, and in the new days not knowing whether I'm going to get a colleague onto Zoom or whatever. And you've always been completely calm in a way that I would try to achieve in my life, but probably will never achieve. So thank you so much for everything you've done. And as both Ian and Noel have said, very much enjoy your Christmas and retirement.
Okay, Simon King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, very quickly. I think probably you and I have worked longer with Rob than any other councillor. I did have a break of 4 years, thanks to you, Kip. But I'm not going to go into that. But yes, I mean, working with Rob has always been a joy, and you know, he's worked with me on the pension board, and yeah, I will really miss you, Rob. So thank you, and I hope we can record these embarrassing comments to you, Rob, in the minutes, so they will be there for posterity. And I would also just like to correct Councillor Kavanagh on this one. There are no shenanigans in the Conservative group ever.
Okay, I think thank members for their comments. I'm sure Rob appreciates them enormously. Okay, I'm going to have to go back to actually conduct the meeting now, members. Okay, so I'd like to begin by calling the names of members to assure that you are physically you are here. So I'll name them by alphabetical. Councillor Batchelor.
Morning, Chairman.
Morning. Councillor French.
Morning.
Councillor Hartford.
Good morning.
Councillor Howell.
Present, sir.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Present. Yeah.
Councillor King.
Present.
Councillor Manning.
Present.
Councillor Smith.
Good morning.
Councillor Taylor.
Present.
Okay, good morning, Amanda. And myself, Councillor Bates. Okay, so I'd now like to go to item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies and absence. Dawn, can you please advise us on those, please?
We have apologies from Councillor Connor, we have Councillor Smith substituting, and we have apologies from Councillor Fuller, we have Councillor French substituting.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest that members wish to declare at this point? I see no hands raised, so if there is in the meeting, please let us know, and I'll let Democratic Services know. So if we would like to move on to item 2, which is the minutes of the Highways Committee, which were on the 10th of last month. So I think there might be just one little correction, Dawn, you wish to bring members' attentions to?
That's correct. I've actually recorded Councillor French as being present at that meeting and she wasn't. So just that one.
With that correction, members, are you content with the minutes of the last meeting?
Agreed.
Okay, I see no hands raised, so that looks unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Can we then perhaps move on to the next item, which is item 3, the action log, which is on page 9 to 16. So I'm going to take them, and I see Simon King.
Yes, just a question, Mr. Chairman. Minute number 45, there was a meeting to discuss the enhanced pothole repair service on the 26th of November. And I didn't know whether Graham Hughes wanted to pick that up now or when we talk about the KPIs.
I'll be advised on that. Simon, apologies, I'm trying to actually find it on the action plan. Could you just repeat which one it is?
Forgive me, Mr. Chairman, it's the very first item.
Yes, okay.
45.
Okay, I found it now, thank you. It says in progress, meeting scheduled for the 26th. Okay, understood. Graham, do you want to pick that up? I think it would be appropriate to pick it up as it's under the action log.
Chairman, would you mind if I asked Richard Lumley, who's also present on the meeting, to update on that, please, for the committee?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Richard?
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that the meeting did take place on the 26th. I'm in the process of putting together a briefing note on it, on the outcome of that, to discuss with yourself and the Vice Chair in the first instance before reporting back
Okay.
to the committee.
So have you got a date yet? No.
Not yet. Not
Okay.
yet.
Can you advise then, bearing in mind its action, please, and that's the 26th, when that date will be? Richard, please. Thank you.
Yes, will do, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Richard.
Henry.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a question on the third item, so minute number 146B, on the finance monitoring report from October last year. It says we are due to have a report back to December this year on the LHI process. I just wanted to check. I know we have we're setting up or proposing to set up an LHI working group today. Will that report be sort of incorporated into that working group, or are we expecting a separate report?
Okay, I understood the question. Thank you, Henry. I'm just thinking which is it goes under Richard Lumley or Graham Hughes to answer that one. I think it would. I think, Henry, it will come down to a bit of the terms of reference of the working group as well, of course. Which one wants to pick that up? Richard or Graham, please?
I'll pick that up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the idea is that it is picked up under the working group report, with the aims of the working group then looking at that process as part of the terms of reference.
And Henry, if you look on the forward plan, you will see it's due to come back next year. So the report of the working party is on the forward plan to come back. Okay, it is there. I think it's March from memory. Richard's shaking his head. So the members on the working party will report back to this committee in March with their recommendations, having considered the issues. Okay.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, that's no trouble. See no other comments on the action plan, so assuming with that there will be nothing. So we then go to item 4, which is public questions. We have got one item on number 5 on the Chisholm Trail, and we'll take it at that point. We have no other public questions. So if we can move to item 5, please, which is the Chisholm Trail and Abbey Chesterton Bridge project update. And I think that's going to be introduced by Alex. I don't see him at the moment. Yes, I do see him.
Alex is waiting to come in. So yeah,
I think I've just been beamed in.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Alex. Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you very much indeed. Please introduce the report as laid out on the papers, please.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Alex Deans. I'm the interim group manager of the major infrastructure and delivery team. So the report is for the Chisholm Trail project, focusing on the Abbey Chesterton Bridge. The project itself is a strategic walking and cycle link between Cambridge Central Station and the newer Cambridge North Station. The route broadly follows the existing railway line. It is anticipated to have a high level of usage, linking up and tying into existing routes in the city. It is a flagship project and investment for both the County Council and the Greater Cambridge Partnership. The project is split into the Abbey Chesterton Bridge, funded by the County Council, and the remaining trail element, funded by the Greater Cambridge Partnership. Planning was obtained in 2017, and a contract was awarded for that same year to Skanska for design, and a joint venture to Carillion and Tarmac for construction. Carillion collapsed a year later in 2018, and that element was transferred to Tarmac. In terms of programme, as per table 2.7 in the report, the bridge and trail are scheduled for completion in July and November 2021, respectively. In terms of costs, these are detailed in paragraph 2.8 for the bridge and paragraph 2.13 for the trail. As you can see, there is a forecast overspend of 2.063 million for the bridge and 6.581 million for the trail. Cost increases on both elements are detailed within the body of the report, and are summarised in appendices 1 and 2 towards the end of the report. Just turning back to the recommendation, so the committee has recommended item A to recommendation A is to note the project update, and recommendation B is to seek additional 106 funding of 2.063 million for the Abbey Chesterton Bridge through the Greater Cambridge Partnership Executive Board, which I understand sits on the 10th of December. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. But before we go to the debate, members, we have got one public comment, and that's from Roxanne. I can see that Roxanne is here with us. So Roxanne, if you would like to please address the meeting, much appreciated. So over to you, Roxanne.
Thank you. Roxanne DeBow speaking on behalf of CamCycle, Cambridge Cycling Campaign. The Chisholm Trail is widely welcomed and will help more local people to walk and cycle for everyday journeys and open up access to the city's precious green spaces. We support calls for a clear understanding of how local authorities manage transport projects and a fuller public disclosure of what has caused the cost overruns. We understand that the collapse of Carillion and the COVID-19 pandemic have both delayed work and increased costs on the Chisholm Trail project, but there seems to be a pattern of cost overruns on transport. Other examples being the Ely bypass at £13 million over budget and the A14 at £700 million over budget. And this urgently needs to be investigated to prevent the issue recurring. Research from active travel charity Sustrans estimates that the current level of cycling in Greater Cambridge saves the region over 100 million a year in healthcare costs and delivers additional benefits in terms of reducing congestion and air pollution. The Abbey Chesterton Bridge and Stourbridge Common Underpass work must be completed soon, as they are crucial connections in the walking and cycling network, and local residents have been inconvenienced for far too long already. The Newmarket Road Underpass is vital for the full benefit of the Chisholm Trail to be realised, and it is essential that works on Coldham's Common begin in the coming weeks, or we risk significant delays that will then impact other sections of the trail. The whole project should be finished as soon as possible so that local residents can make use of this new sustainable route, unlocking citywide benefits for all, even those who don't cycle. Will the committee reassure us of the timescale for the remaining stages of the work and commit to increasing the budget as needed? This infrastructure needs to last for generations and must be finished properly in order that everyone can reap the benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne, and thank you for your question. Members, are there any points of clarification before we get to the debate, please?
Just myself, Chairman.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Chairman. Just the one question with regards to the A14. Could you tell me where you got the figures from, please?
My figures, I would have to go back to our members who helped bring this together. I can go and have a quick look for you now, but I'd say they would have come from the public domain and other reports.
I would be grateful if you could just let the officers know, and we'll have them after the meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
I think I will ask Roxanne. I think you'll find the A14 is a Highways England project. Okay, therefore it's not the responsibility of this authority. That's the only comment I've got. It's not a debate, Roxanne. That was a comment. That was a statement of fact. Highways England delivered the new A14. That's it. Okay, so members, thank you. We now can go to the debate. So the debate is now open. So any member wishing to speak to the paper, got several hands going up here. Councillor Manning, I see you're first. So, Councillor Manning.
Thanks, Chair. I think I'll start by just expressing a degree of sympathy with the officers who are delivering this project. I did a radio interview on this, I think it was last week, and someone made a comment about it's a bit like building a house, and I think my reply was, well, it's a bit like building a house on 17 different bits of land across X number of landowners. Negotiating in different ways and doing something you've probably never done before. So I think there's a degree at which we've got to look at this in the round and and understand that the important thing here is actually the result. I do, though, obviously have to express a degree of concern around the majority group, and at what point the majority group knew about these overspends, Chair. And I would like a little bit of clarification on that, because certainly the first I heard about it was when the paper came to this committee, and I am concerned, and I would like some assurance that phase 2 of the Chisholm Trail, so that's from when it gets across Coldham's Common, is not in further doubt. And the final point I'd make, Chair, is that, and this is maybe one for the officers to clarify, part of the overspend cost was on cost consultants. I'd like to know at what point these cost consultants, having obviously, presumably, spectacularly got this wrong, come back to our officers and our county and say, oops, sorry, we didn't do our job quite right. So I hope I express my support in all those comments for the project and for the work the officers are doing, and that we continue with it and we finish it off in a high quality way. But I would like just some clarity on those points, Chair. Okay, thank you for that, Ian. I'll take Henry, I think, next, and then I will come in along with officers as appropriate. And in fact, I see Noel as well, so I might take all three and then come back. So the next one is Henry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to echo Councillor Manning, I mean, I will be supporting the recommendations on the paper. Just a question for either yourself or officers. Do we know if the GCP are likely to accept this ask for money? I don't know if we've asked them before officially going through this motion, but yeah, just a question on that front. Okay, thank you, Henry. Perhaps I might not take Noel at this point and answer the questions which I think has just been asked. I can reassure members that we have been working with the Greater Cambridge Partnership with officers, to deliver the project as promised. Obviously, that's the bridge. And of course, later on, I think as Ian Manning has pointed out, there are quite a lot of land issues to be resolved and confirmed as we go forward. I'm absolutely confident the Greater Cambridge Partnership wishes to deliver this project. Being an ex-member of the Executive Board, I know they are fully behind it. We will work in partnership to deliver it as we go forward. So I can give you that reassurance to members that we will deliver it, and we are working with them, and they are on board, and they are committed to this project. Hopefully that answers that particular point. I'll come back with some officers who may wish to add anything to that for Ian. Noel Kavanagh, and then I'll come Simon, and then I'll bring in the officers, I think. Okay. Noel?
Yeah, thanks. I reiterate that urge to the GCP to provide the funds so that we can carry on with the Chisholm Trail, and it's so important to the local area to have the trail completed as soon as possible. I think people will recall that when the consultation was done on the possibility of having the Chisholm Trail built, there was one of the largest positive responses from local people, clearly stating that this trail was desired, wanted and needed. And I think we've all got a commitment and a responsibility to make sure it happens. It is a little sad to have this information about the overspend not long after the the spectacular placing of the bridge over the river, which was has been hailed as a huge success, not just as a beautiful piece of engineering to look at, but people realize just how much a part is going to be playing in joining Abbey and Chesterton together and then make a seamless route possible for cyclists and pedestrians from the north to the south of the city. I just got one question relating to the paper. It's on 1.5. and it relates to the new engineering contract 3. And I was just wondering where it refers to possibilities of compensation, whether contractors will be making a contribution to the overspend, because clearly it has been a partnership throughout, you know, and I'm just wondering whether the county council is seeking some costs back from the contractors who've been involved so far in the Chisholm Trail. And as I say, I have a certain anxiety about the costs of the underpass, but I truly hope it will go ahead and be completed to schedule. Such a hugely important part of the trail. I also look forward to phase 2 beginning, and particularly the kind of reconfiguration of the junction at Coldham's Lane and Cromwell Road. A hugely important part of the safety aspect of the trail, which, as I say, the local population is really looking forward to have it completed as soon as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Noel. I'll take Simon King, and then I think I'll bring in officers after that. Simon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, there's an old saying that those who do not learn from the past are condemned to repeat it. And just picking up on the points that Roxanne made about overspends, and various other of our colleagues have made, I just wondered what process we have within the County Council to understand why things went over budget, and how we can embed that learning when we come to commission future projects. So, and I think I would be quite happy to see a report on those lines coming to this committee at some future point, so that we can be confident that we are embedding this learning in the organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. And I think at this point it would be very appropriate to bring in Steve Cox, who is obviously sits at the top of this particular part of the organisation with the county. So Steve, and then I think we could go back to perhaps Alex or Graham with some more detail. So Steve, I'll start with you, please.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning, members. Thank you, Councillor Bates. Just a few comments from me on some of the questions that have been posed, and then, as you say, Councillor Bates, I'll ask Graham and Alex to come in on some of the detailed project questions. Just picking up on Councillor Manning's points at the beginning, yes, it is a complex project, but there are lots of complex projects that we work with, and officers that are doing a really good job to get it back on track now. But things could have been done differently, and you'll see at the outset, you'll see in the paper where some decisions taken in 2017, I think, have led us to the position that we have got ourselves into earlier in the year. And that is as it is, and I'll come back to Councillor King's comments in a second about learning from that, and it is important that we do learn. Just in terms of the timelines, this year we became aware of the problem, the overspend in the summer, and alerted, as you would expect us to, members in the early autumn. And the challenge rightly came back to us as officers to get the project on track, to understand what happened, and to come forward with a way forward, which is what we have now in front of committee today. So we've responded to that over the course of the autumn and brought this paper forward, hopefully for members to agree as a way of keeping a very important scheme on the books and delivering at a timeline that was outlined earlier for completion next year. The difficulties with the project also prompted me to initiate a review of project management in the delivery of schemes such as this, and that has also taken place over the autumn, and that I think has helpfully pointed to a number of areas where we can improve what we do around programme management and project management, and generally around the control environment that we have in escalating and providing project assurance. So I'm embedding and putting in place different ways of working, better ways of working, exactly to pick up Councillor King's points, that we can prevent this from happening again, because it is important that we do that quite rightly. So that's going to take time. We've already started introducing better ways of managing the programming projects, and that will continue into 2021. And with a support program to improve training where it's needed, to support staff in the management of these complex and other projects. So I'm happy to provide a briefing note on the essence of and detail of that, those management improvements and changes that are being put in place in due course. It is still evolving and is being introduced, as I say, but if committee would like a note on what that is, what it entails, I'm happy to provide that as Councillor King has requested. I think if that is requested, that I can do that. So Councillor Bates, that's
okay.
by way of context.
Thank you. I think at this point, before I bring in Graham or Alex or Andy, Linda Hartford, I'll bring Linda in at this particular point, I think, and then ask officers to look at some of the detailed questions. Linda.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I just want to pick up on what has been talked about in terms of learning. And it does strike me that we actually have a problem nationwide with major projects. So trying to learn from anything internally or even across the nation might not be the best way to go about it. I mean, we only have to look at HS2, and I'm amazed, you know, despite the fact that the A14 has been absolutely finished on time and on budget. This morning we hear it's 700 million over budget. Well, I'm really looking forward to learning how that's come about, because finished on time, go and ask some of my residents in my division at Bar Hill. It is not finished on time. And now we hear it's not on budget either. So my point is that I think that there are probably other examples much further afield where projects are delivered on time. And I wonder if it wouldn't be time for us to start looking at some further afield examples of where that does happen, so that we can try to replicate the processes that arrive at a much better on time and on budget outcome, rather than just looking internally.
Okay, I think we will take up the offer that Mr. Cox has suggested and ask him to produce a briefing note for all members of this committee. I suspect there might be some more interest outside of the committee as well, from outside bodies as well. So I think I'm content with that. I think it would be appropriate, perhaps before I bring you back in here, and it is to perhaps go to either Alex or Graham or Andy Preston to some of the issues which were raised during the discussion and the debate. So perhaps give them an opportunity, and then I'll bring you back in, Ian. Okay.
Chairman, thank you. Through you, I'll pick up just briefly the points that have been raised by members of the committee. I'll just go through them as I've jotted them down, so hopefully I'll pick everything up. A couple of questions, I think, from Councillor Manning. First of all, I think, Chairman, you covered very well the point around giving certainty about the project moving forward. But I think just to reiterate for members of the committee, certainly as officers and as you say, Chairman, members, we work very closely with the GCP on the whole project, and so yes, I mean I've been assured by the GCP that they're keen to continue and to complete the whole project, and indeed, subject to the decision of this committee, I understand that the GCP will then receive the report requesting the funding on the 10th of December. So subject to the decision, I think we will see that move forward later on in the month. Councillor Manning also raised the point about cost consultants. It's probably a little bit more complicated than just the reference in the table suggests. Essentially, as the main issue here is that as a range of issues have started to appear that have led to the increases in costs. We have brought in, I was going to say we've had to, but we've decided to bring in additional cost consultants because really this links back to one of the other questions that's been raised around, will we be able to, under the NEC contract, Councillor Kavanagh raised that point, if you like, claim some of this money back. So actually a lot of the spending on the cost consultants is around scrutinising every single item that comes in from the contractor, where they're claiming money off us, and identifying whether those items are justified. And Chairman, through you, I mean, we are looking as officers very, very hard, as Steve Cox has said, to bring the costs of this project as much as possible under control. We are using those cost consultants to identify where there are legitimate areas, and there are a number of them under the NEC contract where we can actually push costs back to our contractors and partners who are working with us if those costs are not entirely legitimate. So, Councillor Manning, that's where the majority of the additional cost on those cost consultants has gone. Councillor Kavanagh just asked briefly about the underpass issue. Ultimately, the underpass, because it's on the trail and not the bridge, and we're only, as part of this committee discussion, it's only the bridge element that the County Council is responsible for. But Councillor Kavanagh, you asked about sort of certainty, because clearly the underpass is a very important part of the overall project. Again, in all the conversations that I've had with Peter Blake, who's the Transport Director at GCP, he's absolutely emphasised the criticality of the underpass to the overall scheme. So I obviously can't speak directly for the GCP, but all of the conversations I've had are as I say, confirming that that is an absolutely central and key part of the scheme that will be delivered. The only other question or comments made, Councillor Harford, I think it's a very, very good point you make, Councillor Harford, around learning from experience elsewhere. I mean, we do try to do that, but I think we need to redouble our efforts in learning from others' experience. I think just a final point I'd make, I mean, I think underlying a number of the questions, I mean, quite rightly so from members of this committee, are why do we find ourselves in this position? And I think I would just emphasise a couple of the comments that have been made, which is that these are extremely complex schemes, and there is always a balance between how we cost them, how much contingency we put into the costings and so on. And so we don't always get it right. I absolutely acknowledge that officers don't always get it right, but we do want to learn. And so I can assure you, Councillor Harford, we will look elsewhere. We will, with the review that Steve Cox has talked about, identify better ways of doing things to hopefully not find ourselves in this position again. So I think, Chairman, I think that covers all the points, unless I'm mistaken.
Okay. I think it does. Alex or any other officer wish to make any comment at this point? No? Okay, we've got three other speakers, and then I think I will go to the vote for now. People coming back. Ian Manning, Councillor Howe, Linda Hartford, Simon King, and then I think I'll go to the vote. So Ian, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just sort of two follow-up points. I did ask about when the majority group knew about these overspends, and I think the answer that I've got is that it was autumn. So I would like some clarity on that. And just on the second point to make is that my day job is IT, and I think there's other councillors here who work on IT projects, and I know how complex and convoluted things can get, and how cost estimates can be wildly inaccurate or widely accurate, and it can sometimes feel like it's almost nothing to do with how you've done those things. But I think Roxanne from the Cycle campaign, her point was around systemic issues. I think that's what Councillor Harford was gearing towards. So I suppose the slightly pressured question for Stephen Graham is that, yes, you're going to make a whole series of changes and you're going to provide us with a briefing note about those changes. I think what we want to see, and what probably the public wants to see, is at what point do we envisage those changes having an impact on a future project? And I I realise in asking that question, I'm essentially saying to you, how are you going to give me a project in future that might go over budget, that won't go over budget? And I realise it's a very difficult question to answer, but I would like some, I think, some idea about what those changes are going to what the impact of those changes are going to be.
Okay, I'm going to bring Mark Howell in, and then I'll go, I think, to stick back to Steve Cox, please, at this point. Mark?
Thank you very much indeed. Yes. Well, if everybody was to look at paragraph 2.5 on page 21, really, I know Steve Cox has emphasised this in a far more eloquent way, but that's succinctly what is the issue. You know, we had a lot of shortcomings at the beginning stage, and that was it. That's where we made the problems. That's where the all problems come from. We should have been given more information, or the people on the committee at that particular time should have been given the information, and far more in-depth information. And we was not, or the committee was not, I wasn't on there, and many of us weren't. So that's where it all comes from, and it's cascaded from that. With regards to the project at the moment, I think it's fair to say, and I know Councillor Kavanagh has already brought it up, and so has Graham Hughes, you know, the underpass is a concern. We've all got concerns about the underpass. Let's make sure that everybody knows that now. I've registered my concerns. I know the chairman has registered his concerns. The officers have all registered concerns with regards to the underpass and the amount of time it's going to take. Now, we've been given assurances. I know that, but we still have concerns there. So, you know, this is a big project. And the biggest thing with regards to the underpass is the fact that it's so close to what is now known as the Leper Chapel. What's going to happen when we dig into that particular embankment? I mean, we hope it's just an embankment that's been built up and we can just go into it and nothing will be there. But you never know with these things, especially when it's so close to a place of worship. So, you know, there are still concerns here. We've all noticed and registered these concerns. And we're all hoping that when we go forward, this is going to be a smooth journey. But it's not. It's not going to be. So we've still all got worries and concerns on this, but I think 2.5 really does encapsulate everything that what has happened in the past. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Steve Cox, please, and then I'll come to Simon King after.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Bates. Yeah, I mean, I do understand Councillor Manning's points, and as we know, these projects, many projects, do take a while, years to come through, and there may still be other decisions that were taken on projects in the past that will still need to work their way through, but we are on top of it, which I think is the important thing. We're aware and looking very hard to see whether there is anything that needs to be addressed, and I think that's an important part of the change. The improvements to how we work are already being embedded, and again, that will take its time to work into the systems and the processes that we have. But over the last couple of months, the teams have responded really positively to that, and I want that to continue, and it will continue into next year. So it isn't with capital schemes of this nature. You know, inevitably, it's going to take a bit of time to see the improvements made. But we have some projects on site now. We've delivered the first roundabout at Lancaster Way, and King's Dyke is moving forward. So there are projects that are on the books that are moving through, and I'm fully expecting when we get into new projects that those decisions at the outset, which are really important in setting the budget and being clear about design, being clear about the costs, are actually, unlike unfortunately with this project, we're absolutely clear about those when we go out to tender, when we get the contract prices back, so that we're not tripping ourselves up in later years. Absolutely crucial that we do that, and that will be one of the key lessons that we learn from this particular project as we go forward. And the teams recognise that it was a few years ago when those decisions were taken, and everybody, I think, now really appreciates how we need to make sure that we don't see a repeat of that. So yes, you know, fully understand the questions, and I will capture that in the briefing note, Chairman, for committee.
Okay, and in answer to Councillor Manning's, I think you've had the answer, which is the autumn. And obviously, we were charging officers and discussing with officers about the way forward, from in where that finance might come, and hence the recommendation and the report which is before you. And I think at 2.5 is actually explained what has happened. Simon King, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for agreeing with the suggestion of a briefing note. I think that would be very helpful. Just wanted to very much support what Councillor Howell said. I do think, though, that something we need to recognise is the value of external consultants. I strongly suspect that if we had got appropriate external consultants in for the project management of this early on, we would actually have reduced the amount of additional money. 2.5 suggests that anyway. So I don't think we should ever be afraid of getting external advice in. I always look upon it as invest to save. You invest some money initially to save overruns later on. So I don't think we should ever be afraid of that. And I think we need to just be quite robust about explaining those decisions to the people we serve. Thank you.
Okay, members, I think we've had a good debate. Thank you. I'm going to go now. It's on page 19 with the recommendations A and B. I'm going to take them both, which is to note the project and to seek the additional funding through section 106 for the Abbey Chesterton Bridge, and then through the Greater Cambridge Partnership Executive Board. I think we've had a good debate. I think you've been reassured in relationship to the partnership we have with that Greater Cambridge Partnership in delivery. So I'm now looking for to see if there are any objections or amendments or anything else to the recommendations as laid out on the paper. I see no hands. Therefore, take that as unanimous. Thank you, members. If we could please then move on to the next item, which is item 6. As he tries to find item 6 now, which is the Local Highways Initiative. Apologies while I find it myself. Okay, it's on page 27. So I think we will go to that. We have no speakers. I think it's Chris Foyle who's going to introduce this report. So Chris, welcome. And if you could introduce the report as laid out on the papers, please. Thank you.
It's actually me, Chair, who's going to introduce the report, Matt Staten. Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, apologies for that. I'm not sure why it had Chris's name down for the report. So,
well,
yeah,
welcome, Matt Staten.
You've got me, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Over to you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, so this report is to, following debate earlier in the year, brings back a report to set up a working group to review the local highway improvement scheme, and outlines a proposal to set up a cross-party working group of 6 members, formed of 4 members from the Conservative group, 1 member from the Liberal Democrat group, and 1 member from the Labour group. And the scope is set out to look at, first of all, the financial contributions, second, the number of applications per area, third, member panels, including their composition, operation, and the scoring criteria, fourth, applications for mobile vehicle activated signs or speed indicating devices, and fifth, officer resourcing. The timeline outlined for the working group to operate is to start immediately after a decision today, and set up meetings between now and Christmas and again in January to draft a report for the end of January, which can then be brought back to committee in March in order to influence the next round of LHI applications, which would open in May or June 2021. So the recommendations are, first of all, to nominate the 6 members to form the working group, and secondly, just apologies for a mistake in the wording of recommendation B, but it should read approve the timescale for the review outlined in 2.8.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I think it would be appropriate at this point to bring in Vice Chairman Mark Howell, who I think can start to populate the members who would serve on this working party. Mark?
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. The Conservative group, if everybody doesn't mind, I'll say everybody. The Conservative group is Councillor King, Councillor Gardner, Councillor Harford, and Councillor Every. The Liberal Democratic group, I've been informed, is Councillor Manning, and the Labour group, I've been told, is Councillor Linda Jones.
Okay, so those hopefully you got those dawned. So those are the members of the working party. So thank you for those members for volunteering. Hopefully they were volunteers. So members, with the slight adjustment to the recommendation, I'm open now to the debate. Is there anybody wishing to speak? I see nobody wishing to speak. I take therefore the recommendations as laid with that amendment that Matt has indicated. That recommendation, therefore, I'm now seeing no hands raised. That's therefore unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, members. If we'd like to move on, please, to the next item, which is item 7. And I think that hopefully got the right officer this time, which I think, yes, good. Well, that is good because it is the officer I'm expecting to see. So Sonia Hanson, would you please introduce the paper, which for members is on page 33, item 7. Sonia, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. The movement of the movement of HGVs in the county is a source of many concerns by local communities. Many HGVs are passing through the county on the Highways England network, but a large number are undertaking journeys within the county supporting businesses in the area. The routing of HGV needs to be considered at a strategic level. The current HGV policy was approved back in 2011, and since then, the use of sat-navs has increased significantly, rendering the advisory freight map, which was part of the existing policy, of very limited use. So the HGV policy needs to be renewed and updated in the light of changes in HGV movements. In order to do this, it's recommended that an HGV member working group is established to work with officers and involving stakeholders to develop an updated policy for HGV management that acknowledges that HGVs have a vital role to play in today's society, supporting a range of services, but also that not all parts of the highway network are necessarily suitable for use by HGVs. Thank you.
Thank you. I think again, I'll come back to Mark Howe, Vice Chairman, I think, who has got those nominations. So Mark, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The Conservative group is Councillors Creswell, Connor, Hunt and Smith, and the Liberal Democratic group are the Lorna Dupre, and the Labour group are Councillor Noel Kavanagh. Chairman, what I should have said for both agenda items, so this agenda item and the previous ones, I think it would really be fair that if a member is unable to make it, then with the permission of the council, a substitute member could be put on instead. I think that's only fair, because otherwise it might be that one of the Liberal Democratic or Labour group members are suddenly unable to make it, and then they have no representation whatsoever. So I think it's only fair that a substitute, after informing you, should be allowed.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that. I don't have a problem with substitutes, as we regularly use them on all other committees, including this one. And we've got, thank you to Councillor French and Smith, who are here today as substitutes. So I don't have a problem with that at all. Simon King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I think this is very timely and important, this review, and I'm glad we're doing it. I would just like to flag up something that is of concern in my area, which is the use of tractors. And what we're talking about here is not the traditional sort of Massey Ferguson type tractor. We're talking about huge fast track vehicles that effectively are operating as HCVs, but without the legal framework. So I do think we need to think about that. Particularly in my area, we have a problem with a lot of mud on the roads, and I am told by my constituents that a lot of this mud is the responsibility of Pretoria Energy. So we need, I would hope that this review will also consider ways in which offenders that leave a huge amount of mud on the road can be held to account. So two things I'm suggesting that hopefully the Working Party will have a look at is the use of fast track tractors, and also the mud that is left on the road by some people who should be clearing it up. Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll come in at this particular point, Simon. I'll draw your attention to 2.7. When Mark and I have been discussing this, one of the things we wanted to do was to engage with other stakeholders, as Sonia Hansen has recognised, and one of those organisations that is on that list is the National Farmers Union. So I hope that the members of the committee, when they do get, and will need to get those members from outside to participate with this working group, because it is quite important. So I draw members' attention to 2.7, which is on page 35. That is an important element in my personal view. I live in a rural community. I've got some very large farms in my division who've got extremely large tractors as well, and they are quite fast, and they come past my house daily, and also the combine harvesters, which have more than one piece of attachment as well. So hopefully that satisfies and would answer your question with that particular organisation coming on board within the working group.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Councillor Manning.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Howell for the suggestion of flexibility around the number of members in the group. He's probably now expecting a but, and there is a but coming, which is that it does rather highlight the fact that the number of members for this working group seems to have been chosen purely because in proportionality rules, it means you get one Lib Dem rather than two if you raise the number of councillors on the working group by more than one. I think we need to just acknowledge that that's a political decision by the majority group here, which does bring me to my second point, which is that we need to acknowledge that there has been an HGV working group for quite a while running on this council, the Diamond Villages working group, which Councillor Dupre was specifically excluded from. It's notable that report ended up with not really recommending any action that could be taken. So it's good that the majority group are now including us, but I do question the wisdom of having excluded opposition non-conservative councillors from a group for a while. They are now only including two councillors. So welcome the change of direction. Need to point out that it's changed. Thank you, Chair.
I will come straight back to this. As you might imagine, the Diamond was a very specific piece of work. It was very specific to a part of the county, a small part of the county. It did not encompass Simon King's division or Fenland divisions at all. Okay, or at all. No, the Diamond area, if you look at the map of the Diamond group, it was quite specific. So I'm very sorry to contradict you, Ian, but that is not the case. That is not the case. You said there was a group that had been doing this. It was not a group that was doing what is being proposed here. This is a new group setting up a cross-party member group to look at it across the county. Sorry to disagree with you, Ian, but you are not correct. Councillor Kavanagh.
Yeah, when Matt Seaton introduced the LHI working party, there was a clear timeline, a deadline for reporting for obvious reasons. But I was just wondering if there is a timeline, a deadline for this working party to be making a final report, or have I missed something in the documentation?
I'll bring Sonia in after, but I think you'll find there isn't a timeline at this moment in time, Noel. Going back to 2.7, to gather those other stakeholders are quite important, actually, with the freight groups, with minerals and waste, with a lot of the things. So there isn't a time. I think this is going to take a little longer than the Local Highways Initiative, okay, which is more bespoke in its terms of reference. I think one of the issues that will need to happen is terms of reference to when this group first meets, and then they can look at that timelines. But I don't anticipate it being a quick review. The policy, as Sonia Hansen has indicated, has been around for some time, and with the introduction of SatNav, I think we do need to engage quite extensively with the external people, like the constabulary as well. Okay, but possibly with IT, with sat-navs as well. No, so I don't have a fixed time in my mind at this moment in time, except what I would just ask for the group actually is to come up with some recommendations when they've considered all of the issues. No, but I think there will be quite a few issues across the county because we are not an island. A lot of traffic comes through from Dover, from Felixstowe. It goes through on our major all roads. The only question I've got actually is we need, I think, to include Highways England, because a lot of the traffic goes on major highways like the A1 or the A14 and the M11. Sonia, have you anything to add, I think, to what I've just said, please?
No, I think that's a good idea about including Highways England. I will make sure that happens. And I think we do reference approximately 12 months in the report to do this piece of work. So I think we recognise there's a lot going on over the next year, and engaging all these stakeholders may take some time. We don't want to rush this.
Okay. Can I just actually go back to Dawn Cave? Does the recommendation, bearing in mind substitutes, which are not in the recommendation, does the members here need to add anything to the two recommendations about substitutes? I'm quite content to have substitutes, but does it need to be recognised, or is it sufficient to recognise in the discussions that we've had, Dawn, please?
I think it probably is sufficient, but if you'd like, we could include something about substitutes in the recommendations to make it absolutely clear, and then it's an easy reference point if anyone ever wants to go back to it.
Okay, Councillor Howell, I'm on the substitutes only, I think, at this point.
With regards to substitutes, I would like to formally request that, with the permission of the chairman, on informing the chairman that all parties may substitute a member of all Highways and Transport Working Group at any time, or something along those lines.
Okay, I'm content with that.
If it helps.
Well, I'm going to make another slightly tongue-in-cheek to Ian Manning. I'm quite happy to substitute for your members, Ian. Okay. You don't need to comment on that.
No, I'd substitute for two of your members if you want.
I think we've discussed it sufficiently. I think we've got a way forward. I'm going to go to the recommendation, which is we've had the nominations, we've had the substitutes. I think we've heard the stakeholders, etc. I'm looking for if there are any objections or abstentions or anything else. I don't think there are. So I take that as unanimous. Thank you, members. And if we move on to item 8 of the agenda. That's sorry, I think that is the key performance. I think that's Emma Murden.
Thank you, Chairman. This report.
Good morning, Emma. Let's start, because I'm trying to find it on my Apple. So
right.
I'm now. Don't rush me. Don't rush me. It's on page 39, members. Okay, it's Emma Murden who'll be introducing it. So over to you, Emma, please. Apologies for that.
Thank you, Chairman. This report outlines the contract KPIs that we have as part of the Highway Services contract that we have with Skanska. There are a set of contract KPIs that help us to monitor the performance of the contract. In total, there are 18 KPIs that reflect our service, but also industry standards. These are monitored throughout the year by the Joint Management Team and the Strategic Collaboration Board. And within the report, you get a flavour for that in Appendix 2, which shows you the monthly reporting of those KPIs. There's also a reconciliation that's carried out to provide annualised KPIs, which are shown in Appendix 1. The annualised KPIs can result in various conditions of contract, such as extensions, reductions, payments, and also a slice that goes into the Social Value Fund allocation pot. There are currently 4 of our contract KPIs that have improvement plans in place, namely the timeliness of Cat 2 defect repairs, non-compliance with street works, element of final accounts, and also projects where the threshold between variance and target costs have not been achieved. So really the report generally outlines the reporting cycles that we have, the key contract KPIs, and it summarises that in detail for you.
Okay, Can I just actually draw members' attention, I think, to 1.2 and just thank the members that have been involved with this discussion with Emma Murden. That's Councillor Hartford, King, Scott and Manning. So thank you to those members for contributing to the work and to this report. Simon King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I just wondered if, and good morning, Emma. I wondered if you could just give us a bit more detail on the KPIs that are not that reflect underperformance. And I'm looking at the program delivery ones, and in particular, the non-compliance, which would have resulted in an FPN.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'll ask Ian Manning to ask his question, Emma, which will give you a little a bit of time. Okay, so Ian Manning, and then we'll go back to Emma.
I think it's similar to Councillor King's question in a way, and it kind of feeds in from our earlier discussion about the item 5, that but mine is more that it's great to see the percentages going up, but I'm still not clear that we have a list of target dates for every single project. I think we need to encourage a culture where setting a target date is seen as an ambition, and maybe we don't make it, maybe we do make it. But my feeling at the moment is that the sort of target dates are slightly shrouded in mystery.
Hopefully,
if Emma could comment on that, I'd be very grateful.
Hopefully, Emma Murden will unveil it for you. Okay, Emma.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll take those in order. So firstly, there was the FPNs. So fundamentally, we actually look about road space booking and permitting system through Street Manager, and we do actually monitor our own activity on the network as well as we do for all the utility companies. So the FPN really is where we have non-compliance with the standards as laid out in the streetworks permitting requirements. And so, as I say, it's something we try and benchmark ourselves with every other user on the highway network. If that puts it in context, so yes, we do monitor ourselves against our work that we put on the network, and it's the timeliness in terms of coordination of streetworks as well. So it's very important to us. The second point, coming to Councillor Manning's point, we are doing a piece of work around target dates within the contract. We also have an annual plan of works that we try and monitor and maintain on a quarterly basis. And we do put project timescales and start and end, indicative start and end dates in that to try and actually drive target dates for delivery. And it's definitely something we're looking to improve upon with our contractor and better keep people informed in terms of when we plan to start, but also complete the works we intend to deliver through this contract.
Okay, thank you, Emma. I've got Noel Kavanagh, Ian Manning, and I'll perhaps seek if any other officer wishes to make any comments, and then I've got Simon King. So I'll take the three questions together, Emma, and then come back to officers. Noel Kavanagh, your hand is raised.
Just looking at the secondary KPIs, there's a very encouraging positive there under recycled construction waste. 97% of target achieved, which is really good in this era of recycling and saving our environment. So I imagine that means there's a reduction in the movement of heavy vehicles and so on construction sites. I was just wondering whether there's any more detail behind that figure, like how much financial savings there can be by recycling construction materials and so on, because I think that's a really positive message. I just remember not that long ago, the County Council won a national award for reusing the materials on the cycle path on the A10. I think it was called the Green Apple Award for actually not moving the materials off-site as they were dug out. They were actually remained there, and it was a great saving environmentally, and it was recognised nationally. So it's good to see this 97% figure there. So I was just wondering, can other figures be put with that to show the positive outcome? Thanks.
Thank you, Noel. I'll take the other two questions, Emma, and then I'll come back to you. Ian Manning.
Just to come back on, thanks for your answer, Emma. Can you just be clear about when we're talking about the percentages in the report, which of those target dates you were talking about? Was it the indicative ones? Was it the, which of those dates were you talking about when we're measuring them in the report?
Okay, thank you, Ian. Simon, and then I'll go back to you, Emma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is similar to that. And again, it's the FPNs, because we've got a target of 5%. And the most recent actual figure is 42%. So I wonder if Emma could just explain that. Perhaps I'm misreading it, but it doesn't seem very good to me.
Okay. Emma, would you like to pick up those queries?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, coming back to Councillor Kavanagh's point about recycled waste, it is something we're actually spending an awful lot of time on the contract and prioritising that to best break down where we are recycling and reusing products. So some of you might be aware in some of our ex and in situ recycling processes. So it is something we're going to try and further break down, but also with that in mind, working with our climate change colleagues, we are holding workshops and working with Skanska quite heavily to best understand what our carbon footprint looks like and to better improve that across the contract. But we also try and capture efficiency savings where we are improving the costs or the efficiencies on particular projects and what that looks like too. And yes, it was the Green Apple Award, you're quite correct. In terms of percentages in the task order programme, the datum that's actually captured within the project delivery KPI is from when we place the order with Skanska to when the works are completed. And there's a works programme that people should follow to try and best understand the duration of the work. So the KPI itself is more around the duration of the works that we are undertaking, whereas the annual plan gives us a programme at a higher level to best understand when our target dates for delivery are. So one looks at the specifics in terms of how long it takes, and that's what's gathered in the KPI. And the other is to try and target when we're looking to deliver various schemes within the financial annual cycle.
Okay. Sorry.
And then Councillor King, in terms of the FPNs, yes, I think it's definitely an area where we need to improve upon. So what we're saying is non-compliance should not exceed 5%, and therefore there has been, it's probably a performance area that we really need to embrace and improve upon. And we do have a performance improvement working group and plan in place to actually try and get that, to have significant improvements. We have within the life of this contract actually achieved less than 5%, but for the time being, with the implementation of Street Manager and other factors in terms of new systems being rolled out, it's definitely something Skanska and ourselves are aware that we need to improve upon.
Okay, I've got Linda Hartford, and then I think I might get Richard Lumley to add to this discussion, I think, about meeting Skanska and their performance. So Linda.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you for this report. I found it really interesting, actually. If I could refer, please, to the second item under secondary KPIs, which is the percentage of cyclic maintenance activities delivered to the agreed programme. It may just be me, but it just rather concerned me that there is a really wide range of activities included in apparently just that one KPI. And although I know that we are going to be doing some work on looking at how we maintain gullies, etc., it really worries me that gully cleansing and jetting is included in that sort of lumped together measure, because that is something that is so important to our residents, and something which I think we're probably all agreed we do need to be looking at more closely and reviewing. And so to include something like that in with things like grass cutting, really worries me. So am I to understand that the only way the performance on gully cleansing and jetting gets measured is as part of that lumped together group?
I'll come to you, Emma, and then I think I'll go to Richard Lumley to perhaps have a little add something here about how often we're meeting Skanska and the management team at Skanska. So come to you, Emma, first, and then back to Richard Lumley, I think, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So, Councillor Harford, in relation to the cyclic treatments for this KPI, they are taken as a whole. However, we do actually break it down and have the granularity of which areas are performing well or less well. We also look at other contract components. So the style of contracts we have are option C and E, which is one's target cost and one's actual cost. And we do an analysis of each of those components for option E and option C. So I can assure you in terms of gullies, for example, we do actually define that and look at that as part of some of the option E elements of work that we do. So we do break it down in far more granularity, and where there's causal areas of concern, we will then work with Skanska to try and improve in those areas.
Perhaps that should, we can come back to that, Emma, because you could break that down, I think, for future reports, couldn't you? So my question, sorry, picking up what Linda said, can you please take away and break that particular point down that Councillor Hartford has brought to our attention? Because obviously that's what you're talking about. Okay, so could you please break it down and then circulate what you've got in respect to gullies and the other issues about verge cutting, etc., and circulate that to members? I think that would be then useful for all members to see it. I would suggest possibly all members, not just this committee. Richard, I think it would be appropriate that you perhaps have some input into meeting Skanska and performance related issues, please.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, as this committee is aware, there is regular challenge and frustration just around the timeliness of delivery of schemes, and also the value for money of schemes that are delivered through the highway contract. And whilst the KPIs that Emma has talked about are an important part of how we monitor and measure performance of Skanska and thus hold them to account. Ultimately, it is part and parcel of a wider, the wider relationship between ourselves and Skanska. And over the early part of the autumn and latter part of the summer, we've had a number of conversations at quite a senior level with Skanska about improving that relationship and actually driving real performance of how the contract operates. The upshot of that has been that Graham and I now meet weekly with a senior officer within Skanska, and we've sort of refocused the monthly joint management team, which is a meeting of my management team and Skanska's management team, looking at the sort of day-to-day operation of the contract, and overseeing the service improvement plans that Emma has referenced. And this is all being fed back into the quarterly board, which Councillor Bates and Councillor Howell sit on, so that we've got much greater visibility of Skanska's performance, but also allowing us to challenge in a much more timely fashion and provide much clearer instruction around our expectations. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, what we need to get right is improve that delivery, so it is done in a timely fashion, coming back to the points around programme and dates, but also that we are getting value for money out of the contract.
Just to perhaps add something to Mark and myself, have been meeting quarterly. I think both Mark and I are certainly wishing to see Skanska improve their performance. Just remind, I think, members, this is a large contract. It's a considerable value, okay, in financial terms, and therefore it is something that the public sees, Okay, they do see road repairs, they do see potholes filled, they do see programs of activity, of whether it's gullies or verge cutting, etc. So it is actually a very forward-facing customer service arrangement. We do need to work in partnership. They are our contractor. We do need to work in partnership. It's not a them and us. And both Mark and myself are certainly wishing to see Skanska's performance on all accounts and hold them to account. That's to give all your members on this committee that reassurance that both Councillor Howe and myself are pushing that particular point, along with Richard Lumley and Emma and Steve Cox and Graham Hughes. I think we're asked to note it. I have only one comment that I would add. I think, bearing in mind we've had quite an extensive, my comment actually is back to Emma. I think it may be worthy to arrange meetings with the members who've already indicated their interest in it, which is laid out in the papers anyway. It may be useful that you have some regular discussion with those members. They are all party. I don't call it a working party, Ian, by the way. Okay, so I'm quite happy for informal discussions to take place between the members, which is at 1.2. Okay, with Emma, I'll leave that, I think, for Emma to resolve with Richard about the timeliness of those. I don't think it's a frequent, but it would be useful, for instance, to meet at appropriate times during the year as we go forward in respect of contract management of Skanska. I've got now to the recommendations. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, sorry to disturb you. Councillor Manning has indicated a little while ago that he wishes to speak.
Oh, okay. Apologies, Ian. Yes, it's
have
to move the cursor up and down occasionally. Okay, Ian.
No, sorry, I was wondering where I should have waved my hand. Yeah, I mean, just to say, Chair, that clearly, I think you and Councillor Howe know that I am keen to work cross-party where we can. So I'm just wondering why we need to have separate meetings. Why can the opposition groups not be involved directly in the meetings that you and Councillor Howe were having in respect of the contract?
I'll take that away, Ian, and talk it with Steve Cox. Okay, I'll take that issue away. Okay, bearing in mind there are no independents on this committee, and therefore they are a group, or if you can be an independent group, I'm never quite sure about that. Okay, so I think I will take that away and discuss it with Steve Cox, please. The committee are asked to note and approve the report. That's the recommendation as laid out in the paper. I'm looking for any dissent from that, and I don't see any dissent, so take that as unanimous. Thank you very much, members. We can move on to the next item, which is item 9. I think this is going to be introduced by Steve Cox. So, Steve, over to you when you're ready.
Yeah, thanks very much. You're going to ask Graham to introduce it, Councillor Bates.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and Chairman, through you. So the business planning item, I'll be very brief in my introduction. As before, the first sections of this report are the corporate background section, so describe the general position for the council in a financial sense. Sections 7 and 8 are the two that specifically relate to place and economy and most specifically to this committee. So section 7 just talks about an overview of the activities within highways and transport, and section 8 contains the business planning proposals that are going forward. Members of the committee, I'm sure, will recall that when we last reported to you in October, there were 3 proposals that were going forward. Section 8 now contains 2 proposals, one around replacement of the mobile vehicle activated signs, and one around an additional domain for the winter maintenance service. So nothing has been added since the last report, and those are in this paper recommended, subject to your decision today to go forward into the general purposes discussion. Members will recall, though, in October there was one further proposal which was around digitising drainage data. As officers, we've actually looked at that proposal, and because there's still some work to be done in terms of actually putting a business case together, it's not being put forward now. However, we actually think that the work that was being proposed can just be absorbed within the normal service activity. So members will note that we make that point in paragraph 7.5 that essentially we're not now putting it forward as a specific proposal, and we will just implement it and obviously report back to members as that system is rolled out and hopefully starts to deliver in terms of improved outcomes with a knowledge of which gullies need to be cleaned and so on. So members, that's all I'll say in introduction on this paper. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, members. I think it's open for discussion, debate. So over to you. First hand I see is Simon King. So Simon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to say something about the proposal for the vehicle activated signs. First of all, and I support the proposal to deal with this. I think there is a lesson there for us. And I remember, as I'm sure you do, Mr. Chairman, when these were first installed. And really from day one, there has been an issue with maintaining them. They required far more maintenance than we thought they would. And they have ended up being a substantial revenue cost to this authority. And I think the lesson that we need to learn from that is that although things might superficially seem quite attractive and quite reasonably priced, we have to look at the longer term maintenance of these things. And I think if we knew what we knew now, we would never have put in any of these stationary vehicle activated signs. So I just want to flag that up as a really important learning point. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was on the winter gritting, which again support that, but I didn't see any reference in that proposal to involving parishes in the way that we had previously spoken, because there are people within parishes, who are very keen on supporting our efforts by using their farm machinery and so on to spread salt. And I think we mustn't forget that working with people who are willing to help us will add a lot of value at minimal additional cost to the county council. So I hope that we can have some sort of additional paragraph or something within the report reflecting that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I've got a few other speakers. I was just going to mention a historical called bollards, when we installed those, which of course in the fullness of time also got removed in locations. So I think experience says sometimes what you start with is not quite necessarily quite what you wanted at the end of the day. Bollards comes to mind when you were talking, Simon. Henry.
Good point, Mr. Chairman. Good point.
Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's not a point about any detail in the report. It's just a note for yourself. I think our group will be abstaining on this item, obviously, as it's not our budget. So just a note for yourself, Chair.
Okay, yes, thank you. I didn't know it was, I thought this was the committee's decision. Linda?
Thank you very much. I just want to pick up on something that Councillor King said, and he's absolutely right. Whenever we embark upon a project, we ought to be thinking about the future and the maintenance of that project and future costs. And I just wanted to point out that one of the areas where we fail to do this significantly is when we invest in cycling routes. We have done some fabulous projects on cycling infrastructure, but you only have to walk along some of them to see how badly maintained they are. And whilst a lot of us do everything we can to encourage our local parishes to contribute to maintaining some of those routes, there will always be parishes that are not as keen to do it as others. And you know, when we make investments, we do need to remember that it's something that we need to protect that investment. And so I would urge that in all projects that we embark on in the future, we do consider the forward maintenance. Thank you.
A good point, Councillor Hartford, particularly when you're in a growth area where we're building lots of houses, becomes even more crucial, because we end up with more roads, more footpaths, more signs, more everything. Quite right, but it does come at a cost. Councillor Kavanagh.
Yeah, continuing on the theme of the maintenance of the what's it, MVAS, you know, the motorized vehicle activated signs. I think we've all had experience of the signs that are fitted and powered by batteries, where the batteries usually fade after a couple of weeks, and obviously there's a huge cost in having staff to go and replace the batteries. And I have raised this before, but I think looking at long-term savings, shouldn't it be considered that it'd be beneficial to put in solar-powered NVASs? I have raised this before, and I've been told about the difficulty of them being put on certain posts and so on and so forth. But I think they should be, yes, they'd be more expensive to purchase and initially install, but I think long term, let's just take the benefit of having the sunlight there, which is free, and no staff time being used to change batteries on a regular basis. Oh, and also it'll save my email box, because residents, one of the things residents really notice is when the lights go out on these signs. Thank you.
Yes. I think we've all experienced the email. No, I've got some in my division, and I'm sure other members have got some in their division. Okay, so Councillor Manning, and then I think we will move on. Councillor Manning, and then Jan French, and then I'll ask Graham Hughes to come back with the queries. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just a specific point for the officers, whether we've looked into, in terms of both the width and gritting and the gully stuff, using machine learning to do the predictive analysis. General point for, I guess, for the whole committee about, I'm getting a sense we've all talked a lot about concerns around overspend, underspends, and I think Councillor Harford's point relates to this around sort of future maintenance of things we put in. What I'm not clear about is whether we have an overall sense where the financial information is captured around things like, if we go back to item 5, where we have 2 million of section 106 that's unallocated. What we could have done with that if we hadn't have gone over budget on the Chisholm Trail project, and where that kind of information is captured. I understand that it's unallocated money, but in a sense it's not unallocated, is it? Because it's section 106 money, which is meant to mitigate development gain. So I'm wondering where we could capture that, and possibly just to plug one of my own things. There's a couple of things in there for policy challenges, I think, and I'd encourage maybe the committee to think about that. So I never get to set any policy challenges because I sort of have to oversee it all. So I think there's possibly a series of questions there that we could get some new thinking in from outside, and could be part of a policy challenge in future.
Okay, thank you. Jan French, and then I'll come back to Graham Hughes, and then I think I'll go to the vote. Jan, welcome.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, just to pick up on the MVAS signs, March Town Council received theirs under the local highway improvements, and I've just checked the date, the 7th of January last year. March Town Council put 63% towards this. This week, unfortunately, a load of the actual lights, LEDs, have actually gone. Thankfully, it's going to be under guarantee, but if that had been, next month, and it is disappointing to hear the guys that actually move the signs, because it's one that we move, the amount of times he has problems with the batteries. The batteries, we normally put them up for 2 weeks in either place, but the batteries are not lasting as long as we expected.
Okay, there's a few points there to pick up, I think, Graham or other officers. So Graham, can you come back, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, through you, just a couple of responses. Councillor King talked about involving the parishes. Absolutely, Councillor King. I mean, we do work very, very closely with parishes, and as you say, quite a number of them, and indeed farmers and others, do work for us. I think, just for clarity, this proposal here is simply around refining the information we receive through the weather stations to allow us to forecast even more accurately where the winter gritting is needed, and therefore save money. So the work with the parishes continues, sort of irrespective of this proposal. Just for clarity. Councillor Harford, you raised the point around cycleways. I mean, it is a real issue. As a council, we are looking to put more money into to footways and other similar infrastructure, which hopefully will go a little way towards addressing your concerns. I think probably of more importance, and there will be an item though coming back fairly shortly to this committee, because in reality, the majority of the new infrastructure now across the county is delivered either by the Combined Authority or within the Greater Cambridge area, the GCP. And so we will be bringing a paper to you shortly around what we're referring to as commuted payments, but effectively requiring that when any of our partners put in place new infrastructure as part of their overall budget estimates, there is a wrapped up contribution towards maintenance, which will then, hopefully, Councillor Harford and members allow us to deliver the sort of maintenance that communities obviously would like for this new infrastructure. So that will be coming forward, I think, in January is the current plan. So the Chairman is nodding. Thank you, Chairman. On the solar MVAS, in just a sec, maybe Richard Lumley, who I think is more of an expert on that, can just answer Councillor Kavanagh's point. And then just finally, Councillor Manning, in terms of machine learning, yeah, you're right, we have talked about it in the past. I think probably we are a little bit behind the curve, and certainly behind where you are on this. So whilst we have talked about it, I don't think we've really yet embraced how it can be used. But I absolutely agree with you. It's an area that you know, with the right expertise, and you know, officers don't necessarily have that expertise on machine learning, but with the right expertise, I'm sure we could potentially you know, consider that. I think in terms of the drainage proposal, it's not machine learning, but it is sort of what's proposed is a system for learning from if you like, existing maintenance tasks, and then improving our performance. But that's, you know, different and a long way back, Councillor Manning, from what you're suggesting. And I think just finally, you touched on this issue about unallocated money. You're absolutely right. I mean, any money allocated on, if it's spent on something else, there's an opportunity cost. So I think, yeah, we do need to look at that point. And I think probably the key thing is, with our partners having a you know, potentially a longer forward look about where that money can be allocated and where it can most productively be allocated. So hopefully, you know, that's something again we can start to look at. So thank you, Chairman. I think that hopefully answers all the questions.
Richard, would you like to add to the discussion and the debate, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, just on the sort of solar VS, I mean, a lot of it, so it is something we have looked into and do periodically revisit. As you'd appreciate, technology is always evolving. A lot of it comes down to what the local community wants from their sign. There are numerous models on the market of this equipment, and also the sort of whether they are static or mobile as well. So at the moment, it's not something that we've has actually sort of proven viable, or indeed has met what a particular community is looking for. But what I would say, it is something that we do keep under review, and are certainly open to that if the local environment is suitable and the support is there from the community.
Thank you, members. I've got no other speakers. I get the indication that we'll need to go to a vote. The recommendations that are laid out are A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, I'll take them on block. So I will read out individually your names, and if you'd like to actually indicate whether you're for, against, or abstaining. So I'll do them alphabetical. Councillor Batchelor.
Abstain, please, Chair.
Councillor French.
For.
Sorry, Jan, did I hear you?
For. Support.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Hartford.
For.
Councillor Howell.
For, sorry.
Okay. Councillor Kavanagh.
For.
Councillor King.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Manning.
Abstain. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
Abstain.
And myself, for. Dawn, I think you've got the result of that vote.
Yes, Chairman. That's 7 in favour, 3 abstentions, so that is carried.
Okay, thank you, members. If we then can move on to item 10. I think that is Sarah Haywood, who I now see. Thank you. Good morning, Sarah. Okay. Okay. So if you'd like to introduce the report, please, Sarah, and then we'll go to questions after. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just got to make you aware that there was a problem with the publication of the appendix for this report, and so it was sent round via email just before the start of the committee. But in actual fact, there's been virtually no change since last committee on the finance monitoring report. So this is the one for the end of October, and the bottom line is a revenue overspend of 3.3 million. And as with last month and last committee, this is predominantly due to the loss of income due to COVID. And we are claiming this in a grant, but then the grant income is sitting centrally at the moment. On the capital side, I just wanted to say that when the report was published, it was before General Purposes Committee met last week. But just to confirm to you all that General Purposes Committee did approve the additional 4.2 million, a pothole grant to this committee. I think that's all I was going to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, members. I think good news to have more money for the general purposes, which was approved last week. I do apologise. I think I've got the wrong report in front of me, Sarah, so I'm not cited on what's come round. So apologies to members. I'm not particularly cited on those changes. Hopefully other members are. But are there any questions? There appears to be little change to the published report as listed anyway. Are there any members that wish to make any comments? I see no hands. So I take that as unanimous. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. That's unanimous, Dawn. Thank you. We can then move on, I think, to item 11, which is the last item, highways policy, the forward agenda. Dawn, is there any changes to the forward plan and the forward agenda as published?
Chairman, I don't have any changes.
Okay. Thank you. Members, are there any comments? You can see the ones coming in next year on the next meeting, which is the 19th of January. There is the forward plan as listed there, which does include some of the legacy funds for the A14 as well, and the highways improvement members working report as we've discussed this morning. So if there's no other matters than that, I think that's the end of the meeting. So thank you for your time. Simon King, sorry, you got a hand up.
Yes, it's not to do with the last agenda item, Mr. Chairman. It's just to wish to thank you for your chairmanship of this committee during this year. Been really an ongoing pleasure to serve on it, and just to wish you and all the other committee members a good Christmas and a better 2021.
Yes, I think all members would wish that, and it will be a strange Christmas. I think I'm thinking of having a barbecue actually out in the garden, actually with my family, but I'm not sure the family want to come. Okay, but that's another issue. Okay,
Well,
so thank you.
Go for it, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm not sure a large chunk of whatever meat we choose, and there's some debate about that, by the way. So thank you, members. Thank you for your attendance, and have a good Christmas as well, and see you next year. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.